Hey guys, how's it going? It's Talomik here with D&B Academy, and today I want to take a look at some of my tips that you can use to elevate your tunes and stop them becoming a little bit boring, as they go through. We've all hit that point where you have like a brilliant kind of build up or drop or whatever, but over the course of like a 4-minute tune, 3.5-minute tune, whatever, 8-minute tune, whatever you're doing, it gets boring, and you don't know how to keep that idea interesting. So I've got a tune here. This is one that I've done with Kinsella. This isn't out yet. It might be when this video comes out. I don't know when it's coming out. But anyway, it will be coming out at some point this year. So I'll give you kind of a rough kind of rundown just so you get the idea of like how the tune sounds and everything else. And then I'll go through some things that I've done to keep this interesting. So, without further ado.
Why you gotta use me up like that? Twisting up the knife, you're behind my back. Know that I am done. So what you gonna do when you need love? Where you gonna go when you need my help? Telling me you love me, I'm your day one. Then you turn around, keep it for yourself. What you gonna do when you need hugs?
Cool. You get an idea, kind of like an R&B style drum and bass tune. Right, so tip number 1, subtle effects. So we've all done that thing where you have like a reverse crash and into a crash at the start of the drop, basic stuff. But I actually tend to stack a lot of my effects. So this is our effects bus here. This is on the lower end. As the tune isn't out yet, there's a chance that I might add more further down the line before release, but this is sort of a good outline at least to go with. So little things, we've got this spoken word sample in the intro, just here.
Talk to you later. Bye.
And then I've got that, and that's kind of inspired from like older R&B stuff. But following that, I've added this little phone beep. It's almost like an old like 90s like hung up phone type sound, or ringing dial tone, whatever. And we've got that stacked with, we've got some sweeps here, classic reverse crash. We've got some Foley chimes with some reverb on, and then a bunch of other bits. So if I just solo this bus at, say this part, which is going from the verse into the drop. Oh, sorry, from the intro into the verse. Get myself confused. And so we've got this little effect, like a vocal reverse, which I had already like kind of panned and edited, but we've got impacts, chimes, this siren, some sweeps, and another low impact. And all of it stacks up to create more of like an interesting sound and tone rather than just reverse effects and stuff. And all of that carries on throughout the drop. So we've got some others here, for example, like some sweeps and then a stuttered chime. So I'll show you the effects first and then the context. And then in context. And you're essentially using them to accentuate what you're already doing, but it helps progress the tune, keep all those transition moments really interesting, and stops it getting boring. Tip number 2. Every 16 bars, you want to be adding or changing an existing element. So you're adding a new element or changing an existing one. What I mean by that is that if you are adding a new element, you can be adding an ARP or a new lead or a vocal or whatever. Even in the drums, adding a ride every beat or whatever for another 16. Alternatively, you can automate elements. So if we've got an ARP, I can open the filter up or bring the filter back down. If we've got some atmospheres, I can bring the filter down and suck those atmospheres down to give a more subdued 16 bar section, for example. Plenty you can do. Change melodies. If I've got a bass line, I can start adding octave jumps or opening filters or adding some passing notes or whatever, right? I'll show you that in context here. For example, in the instruments bus, we've got this is a 16 bar transition here. So if I show you the last kind of few bars of this one and the first few bars of this one, you'll hear that tonal shift. So I've filtered it down, I brought that kind of vocal pad thing up, and I've added an ARP. That ARP also has some automation over time. You can see here. So I'm kind of doing both. We're changing some existing elements and we're also adding new ones. If I show you that in context very quickly, the vocal also changes in this section.
Day one, then you turn around, keep it for yourself. You're so selfish, you can't help it. Only think about yourself. You're so selfish, you can't help it. Only.
Tip number 3. This ties very closely with tip number 2, and this is to evolve your sounds over time. And so this can be a way to keep sections distinct from one another, but also over the course of a section. As I showed previously, we've got the ARP here evolving over those 16 bars, and even more so in this next 16 bar section. So even though I've copied it, the automation is different. If we show towards the end, but there's plenty of other things you can be doing here. Opening up bass filters, adding notes to pads or pianos so that they become more extended over time. Just get creative with it, essentially. And tip number 4, this one is something that I talk about all the time, and this is adding key tracking to your filters. So you're not going to want to always do this, but I find it helps keep sounds really interesting, even within a short phrase. If you're unsure how to do that, different synths and things will have different methods. We'll look at Serum because that's kind of the most universal at the moment. So I've got a mid bass here, for example. And the way that we do that is by selecting this filter key tracking down here. And what that will do is that every time we play a higher note, the filter is going to open more. When we play lower notes, the filter is going to go lower. Essentially, if I'm playing an A, I don't know, well, it doesn't matter what note it is, but if I'm playing a note here and our filter cutoff is here, as that note moves up, the filter cutoff will move relative to it. Some synths will have a percentage dial for the key tracking. 100% will mean that if our note moves up relative 100 Hz, the filter cutoff will move 100 Hz. But if you set that to 200%, that means if the note moves up 100 Hz, your filter will open up 200 Hz, for example. Most don't, but it's something you might come across, particularly in hardware. The Moog here, for example, has a dial for key tracking. This can be really, really useful with ARPs. So if we take a look at the ARP here, again, this is in Serum, but you'll see it moving a lot more. If I actually solo the right track, you can see we're getting huge variations from like, you know, right in the middle, sort of 1K, right up to a basically fully open filter, depending on the notes. And that's because we've got a broader range across the scale in terms of like what notes are actually being played. I've also added additional key tracking to that filter. So by using the note dial here, you can drag that to your cutoff. I've then adjusted that so that the lowest note of the ARP is right at the bottom here, and the highest note is right at the top there. You can see that just here. I could actually go a little bit lower. I potentially changed some of the lower notes in the filter and left it, but it doesn't matter. It sounds good, and if it sounds good, I won't touch it to kind of correct it to the right way as it works. So there you go, 4 simple tips that you can use to make your tunes more interesting and more engaging over a long period of time. I generally find that if I'm getting sent tunes and they're kind of not hitting the mark, they've not done any of these things, or they've only done a couple and there's some things missing. Effects especially is a really big one. Hope that helped. Any questions, let us know, and I'll see you in the next one.